Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the purple-yellow crocodile leader that we're getting in the fourth set of the One Piece card game, the Kingdoms of Intrigue. And honestly, this is probably one of my favorite leaders from the set after playing it a little bit. I thought it was a little bit janky, but the way that the deck works and the kind of the decision-making that you get to make with it, I think is really cool. I do think that it is maybe missing a little bit to make it more consistent or get where you want to go, but in general, I think the leader is really cool, and I do appreciate playing it and just kind of the play style of the deck in general. So, and you're going to kind of find that in most of the decks and leaders in the fourth set of this card game, is that especially since most of them are multicolored, there's a lot of open deck building challenges that you guys can face, and leaves a lot of room for freedom and personal choice, which is one of my favorite things about card games, of making a deck personal to you and your play style. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for that in this set specifically. So I think that's really cool. So we're going to be talking about the leader, the archetype around it, some of the key cards, and then also kind of like how these key cards could be worked in other leaders and just in general, and then also have an example deck list at the end. So starting off, we do have this leader, Crocodile. It's a 5k 4-life purple-yellow leader, the first purple-yellow leader for sure. And also, opponent's turn, once per turn, when you return Dawn from your field to your Dawn deck through one of your effects, you get to add one Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. So we've seen a little bit over there of the being able to ramp on conditions. So we do see it off the Kaido leader from OP01, where he used to do it where, just if a character's KO'd and you have to have a Dawn underneath your Kaido. But this is more just on your opponent's turn. And because of that too, we have a lot of effects that we lose Dawn on our opponent's turn, but because we use this leader, we're able to not only get the Dawn back, but also get it back refreshed. So there is, a way to untap Dawn during your opponent's turn. And I think that's a really cool interaction that you're able to do with this leader in general. So looking at some of the staples for it, we do have first Miss Valentine. So on play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal one card with Baroque works in one of its types, and add it to your hand. And as far as I know, and you guys can correct me in the comments, you can add form of Baroque's work with this. So for example, if you're in a purple-blue crocodile like leader that might or may not exist, you could add like the Mr. Tube on clay that we get with the Impel Down package from set 2. Also, you're noticing, you'll probably notice that most of these cards from Baroque Works have this trigger from life that you pay the Dawn -1 to play the card. So obviously in a lot of other decks that might be expensive, but if it's your, the trigger that you use with the Crocodile leader, you almost always want to be playing that once per turn, because that can open up more Dawn for you on the defense side, and that's really strong. So, and again, being able to find a searcher and being able to have a searcher from, from your life to be played is great. It's a lot like the Nami for East Blue, and I think this is probably one of the fact that the deck has a searcher is just very strong in the first place. We also have the Mr. 13 and Miss Friday. It's a 2k. It also has an activate main. You can trash this card, and one of your opponents, one of your characters with a type including Baroque works to, ramp up a Dawn. And I think that's okay for what it is. You do lose a 2k, but if you really need to be at a Dawn number on the next turn, that can help you get there if you need to. You will probably have some cards on your board early game too, so to do this is not too terrible. And you can play it for life for free. It's only a 1k, but that's something you can do as well. And then you also have Mr. 4, which I'll scooch over real quick for. So this is opponent's attack Dawn -1. This character gains blocker and plus 1k power for this battle. And this is not a once per turn, so obviously you can really only use blocker once per turn. But if you need to be able to keep giving it the plus 1k, like the free counter, if your opponent's trying to swing into this or something, you can keep doing this once per attack. So let's say you block an attack with, use the -1, block it, and then as a 7k, your opponent tries to swing into it again, you can use the Dawn -1 again to give it the plus 1k for that. So that's somewhat solid for it. And obviously, kind of the issue with a lot of the Dawn -1 effects for me is that they're not really impactful, or they're really costly early game, and then when you get to the late game, when you really you're at 10 Dawn, so you can afford to lose 2 Dawn because you're getting 2 back every turn, they're really not impactful for a 10 Dawn situation. But a lot of these new effects you'll see are kind of worth it, and they do kind of help you out, and you get all these kind of nice little -1 effects that are really nice. So I think these are the staples for the deck right now, just because of their archetype and what you need. Mr. 4 maybe less not, but definitely Miss Valentine and Mr. 13 Miss Friday, very, very strong for this deck. And then we also have these super rares that are included. So we have the Miss All Sunday, just on play. I'll add 1 Rested Dawn to your cost area, and if you have 6 or more Dawn, you get to draw 1. And this is just generically whenever, which is really great. And it's also not restricted to any leader. Obviously, it has a Dawn -2 trigger, so if you played another deck, then you do have to pay that. And then if as long as you like, you can, like, if you have what 8 or I guess 7 or less, and then you get one and get one back, or sorry, 7 or more Dawn, then you can use this effect and it pays for itself, and then you get to draw a card. So like the Dawn -1 is not very bad for -2 is not very bad for this card late game. So it's good in Crocodile. I think some other decks could be using it as well, but it's generically good. It doesn't have a counter. It's only a 5k as a 5-drop. But being able to draw a card and being able to play it for technically free, I think is solid for you there. And then we also have the big bad boy 8-drop Crocodile, which is probably one of my favorite cards in this set. I think it's strong. And weirdly enough, so I will say, like, Croc in this card game in general, it likes to like do like bend the color identities for what it is. Like if we look at like the 5-drop or the star deck blue Crocodile, it has Dawn -4, which like not really any other colors besides purple have the Dawn minus. So we have like a purple one, which is great. And the on play is Dawn -2. If your leader type includes Baroque Works, place up to 1 card from the top of your deck at the top of your life. So you can be playing it in the blue purple Croc, which I have to probably try this out sooner than later. I know that it kind of got a buff, and it was my favorite deck to kind of tinker with in set 1. And I think there is a lot of new cards for it to play with, including having a card that gains you life is fantastic. And then also has this, when your opponent attacks once per turn, Dawn -1 to draw a card and trash 1 card from your hand. So you get that free cycle, which is really nice. And then again, like, you get that Dawn back. So let's say like you need 1 Dawn open, but you played this for 8, then you could use the effect to on your opponent's attack to get the Dawn -1. You open up one of your Dawns, and then you can use a counter on that same attack. So that just that flexibility, I think, is strong. The fact that it puts a card into your life is fantastic, and it's a really, really well designed card for the archetype. And I think just the archetype around it is maybe a little missing, but this is definitely a card worth playing. And when you hit the board, it feels really impactful, which is really nice. So here are some other notable Baroque works that I want to kind of mention. So we got Mr. 3. So opponent's attack once per turn, Dawn -1. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -1k power for this turn. So honestly, just having something that you can proc on a -1 whenever is pretty nice. It's only on characters. It doesn't affect leaders. If this was affecting leaders, it'd be broken. Being able to just get that for free, I think, would be really, really nice. But it just prevents your opponent from getting like a free swing, and then you also don't have to like commit it as a blocker, which is great. It's a 4k, which is in a good range, and sometimes you do generically, from my testing, you want to go second with this deck. I think there are ways to build this deck to go first, and then you ramp another Dawn off a couple of your ways, including like being able to just go first, and then on your 3rd turn playing this Miss All Sunday. I think it's very powerful for you because you go up to 6, and then the next turn you can play Crocodile, so that's very strong. But Mr. 3, being able to do that is great. And again, all the -1s on your opponent's turn, as long as you don't overdo it, they don't really actually minus you 1. We also have Miss Merry Christmas, which is a blocker, and then you just get to play it off your life. This is okay. I'm not a super big fan of it, but it's a card that I know that some people run. The fact that it doesn't have a counter is a little rough, and I don't think it'd be broken if it did have a counter, but it's definitely less than broken because it doesn't have a counter. So if you want another blocker, you're fine. I think there's some better blockers in slot for it that we'll talk about in the deck list, and it's just okay. The fact that it's searchable, though, is fine, but I'd rather, and it does play off life, which is, again, fine, but there it is. And then we also have Mr. 5, which I haven't seen people use, and I could just be, running it wrong or just have a kind of bad expectation for it. But on an opponent's attack once per turn with a Dawn -2, which again is a little costlier than a Dawn -1 because we actually do unramp by 1. But you may rest this character, which having to rest this character means that it really only kind of activates on like the first turn you play with it, and you can't swing. KO up to one of your opponent's characters at a cost of 4 or less. So like that's fine, but like that also means like if you want to use this effect, you just can't attack with it the next turn, and I feel like that's just a hefty cost for it too. So I'm not a big fan. It is a rare in the set. I don't know if it deserves to be a rare, and maybe I'm just playing this card wrong, but I didn't find it very impactful. But I did want to mention it because it was, again, the rarity was a rare, and I wanted to talk about it. So if you guys think this card's good, let me know that I'm just using it wrong in the comments below, but there it is. And then we also have some new event cards. We have a lot of other event cards that we use in this deck too that we'll talk about in the deck profile, but the ones for this, all these are Baroque works, which are great. But we have the Colors Trap, so counter Dawn -1, which is great. And something you can also notice too is that like if you use Colors Trap and it's your first Dawn -1, you play it for free. Like it's 100% free, which is a little busted. But counter Dawn -1, give it to one of your leaders or characters +1 for the battle, then rest up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or lower characters. So being able to kind of like have a mini Punk Gibson is fine. I think that's okay for what it is. And then also has the trigger to add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set as active, which all of these do have that. Then we also have the weakness is a sin, so it's a counter Dawn -1 up to one of your leaders or characters gets +1k power for this entire turn. So that's really great. And then again, it's just a way to it's free technically. Again, like, as long as you stack your minuses 1 so they don't like overlap with each other, you can do a lot of free stuff with this leader, which is why I think it's really cool. So, and then you also have the Nose Fancy Cannon. So this is just like a larger version of Thunder Bagua, but it's a 3-cost counter. Give it to one of your leaders or characters +6k, and then if your life is at 2 or less, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck, set it as rested. So not terrible. I think it's a little bit expensive for specifically this leader to use, but I think others would be totally fine for this. So that is there. I have thought about using this card specifically in Dofi, since it's easier for you to have 3 Dawn open because they have the untapped too, and it just gives you like a reason to ramp more, which I think is strong. So that is there, and those are all of the new event cards. I do want to slowly just mention there's also just some new Baroque Works cards in OP04, but this is a card that I've really saw and like, man, this is really good in Croc, and in my opinion, I haven't tested it, but my opinion is that this can have some really, really good interactions with the deck. It says your turn once per turn when a Dawn card on your field is returned to your Dawn deck, you can add 1 Dawn and set it as active. So like you can use like the opposite side of your leader effects. So you can do it offensively and defensively. So like let's say we play this on turn, let's say we go second, we have 6 Dawn, we play this Eustace Captain Kidd, and then we can play like the 8-drop Croc on the next turn, and then we get like the Dawn back. So like it's only like a -1 and like the cycle for it. So I like that interaction with it. I think that could be good for it. Maybe it's a little bit too like slow, but there's potential for this to like being able to have it on both turns where the -1 doesn't matter for the first time every turn. Seems pretty strong in my opinion. So that's something to test in OP05. I know that's kind of a bit farther away than us getting OP04 later this month, but I did want to mention it. So those are all the cards I want to talk about specifically, and let's go to the example deck list. And here is my example deck list for the Crocodile, and I did test this on my live stream on Twitch as well. If you guys want to check that out, it's going to be linked in the description. I've been testing on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons, at least on West Coast afternoons. So make sure to check those out. I think they're really good, and just have a lot of interaction with a lot of decks, and especially like all of them have been kind of themed more for 1 leader per stream, but once we go through all 6, they're going to be more variety on those, and like using older leaders and everything else. I highly recommend checking those out. So anyways, going into this deck, we don't have like a lot of variety that we didn't already talk about, since this is a little bit of like an archetype deck, so we did want to keep as much as that in. But some additional cards to talk about. Shiki is a really good 2K as well. Just the fact that it does also have the trigger Dawn -1 means that there are some situations where if you need to get that 1 Dawn back to be able to play an event card that's stuck in your hand or something, you can do that to play it, and then you also have another body to attack with the next turn, which is nice. We also have the Capone Gang Beige, which is just a solid card in general. It's another 2K, and being able to sometimes just win you the game because your opponent literally can't attack for game if this was your last life is strong enough. And again, we have enough healing where there are situations where you can put this in your life at the right times where your opponent just can't interact with in the way that they wanted to, which is really strong. So I do like the idea for this as kind of an ace in the hole sometimes. And then we do have the Black Maria, and I really do like this Black Maria for this deck. It's fantastic. It has the blocker, and also has Dawn -1. This character gains +1k power during this turn, so it's just a 6k blocker every turn. Obviously it's not like as good as Borsalino, but the fact that it's a like Borsalino for that effect, it's very easy for this to just be a 4-drop with blocker, and that has 6k for the entire turn. So, and in general, we do really value the Dawn -1s that we can activate for free. So we can, potentially, if we have no Dawn open at the end of our turn, we use this Black Maria to block. We get to get a Dawn back and active, and then we can play something like the Arrow or the Blast Breath, which is really strong there. So being able to open up that Dawn when we didn't have it available at the end of the turn is great. We talked about this. I think Charlotte Katakuri is just going to be better over time. We've been seeing it. You see a lot of play in the Queen deck that's coming out next in this set as well. And I think this is, has a home in this one too, especially since we have so many cards that, have these, on life triggers, which are fantastic. So I think that is good for it. So Katakuri is really good to bounce back. Like, you played Miss Valentine early in the game, and then it's it went away. Like you're still sitting there. When you're at 8 Dawn, you just bop it back into your security, and then you can play it again and draw another card, which is fantastic. Same thing with Missile Sunday, more or less. You get to get a draw back from this, and you get the ramp back, even though you went the -2. So it evens out if it's the only -1 trigger or -2 trigger that you do for the turn, but we have that too. And I think Katakuri just fits very well with it. Yamato is good in its own right. It is just another top, and we do have, 10 cards in our top deck, but we don't really mind that bad for it. I think it's fine. This being able to gain life is great as well. This being able to get some destruction is great too, because we are missing out on a little bit of removal for this deck, so I think that's fine for you. If you like Thunderbolt, definitely you can run Thunderbolt. We're not running in this build, but it is a viable card for yellow for a little bit of removal. We also have there's other cards that you can run in removal for purple too, if you kind of find that is needed for this format too. Blast Breath is fantastic. It's just free. It's just super free. Like, you don't even have to pay the Dawn for it. It's so good. And then Arrow is just like a worse Blast Breath. But again, think Radical Beam's banned because the card is so good. And this is just better Rad Beam all the time in Crocodile. It doesn't have a trigger, but just the fact you do not the cost is not even a thing in this leader most of the time, so that's very good for you. Thunder Bagua, I do like this to be able to get some Dawn back, especially since sometimes you do have to double down on some of your -1s on the same turn, so this can help you get there. And since we're only a 2-life leader, sometimes this can be a card to ramp with it, and I do think there's a build that you just go really aggressive into building your board, ramping up, and then you get your top ends really quickly, which I think is nice. And then you also have the Hellish Judgments, which I really do like this card. I think this is really strong in the deck. It's only a Dawn -1, so you can pay it for 2 and then have 1 open, and then if you need to play the Arrow or the Blast Breath, you can do that. But also just the fact that you can have some plays where you only have time to leave 1 open Dawn, but then you use your Black Maria effect to do the Dawn -1. So you lose a Dawn, you get 1 back and active, and then you can Hell's Judgment afterwards. So I like this card a lot. I think it's good. It might not be specifically good in this deck right now, or at least specifically how I build for this one, but I do think there's some builds for it. And I don't think it's too crazy to say that you can do some impel down stuff as well. Like, if you are able to use Magellan and kind of control their speed, if that's important for this meta, you can definitely run more of the impel down package too. So that is there. And that's pretty much the deck. I do also want to mention real quick a couple other of just Dawn -1 cards. So we have, there it goes. But we do have... Where'd he go? Where'd he go? The purple, Yokozuna. So this just is a 3-drop. That's a blocker. That Dawn -1, you can return up to one of your opponent's characters cost of 2 or less to their hand. So you can block with this, and if they attack with a 2-drop, you just bounce to the hand before they get to do anything. It's not a Broke's work, but it does, just having a way to do a Dawn -1 on your opponent's turn is pretty good. We also do have the Uta. If you don't if you want some more blockers in the slot and we are out of Black Marias, the Uta is a fine substitute to add 1 or 2. I thought that Uta might be better, but after testing, I definitely like Black Maria a lot more. But if you want more blockers, Uta is definitely a viable target for that there. There's the Ulti Mortar, which I tried and I thought was okay for the slot. In general, it's a little bit expensive, and I kind of pretty much the justification is that, this is Dawn -2, but it's technically only Dawn -1 for us, and then we get to draw a card and get plus 2k power, so that's kind of nice for that. But then most of the time when we use this, we want to use it for getting another 2k to counter with, and then which just ends up saying Blast Breath is just better overall in the slot. So but if you want more just 1-drop counters, this is an okay one. It's a little expensive, Dawn -2, but again, if you get to 10 Dawn, you can do an additional 2 minuses on your opponent's turn, and it doesn't add up because you go back to 10 anyway, so I think that's fine. And also the Union Armada, which is a film card, but it's something that no, this card's just bad. I don't know why this is here. Why is this here? I don't know why this is here. This must have been something else, but don't run this card. Just look at these two. These two are the ones you want to talk about. It's super late here, and I'm going to be ending this video anyway. So this is the list. I hope you guys try out Crocodile. I do think that there is There is some lines of play that are really good, and I think there are some ratios that I want to work out with and see what cards are really good. And I think this is a deck that can definitely adapt to the meta, and there are some ways. If you hard want to go first, you can do it. If you hard want to go second, you can. And it's going to be really exciting to see if I can adapt this to what the meta is going to end up being here in North America. So that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We've got 2 more leaders, which are going to be coming out next week, eShow and VV. So make sure to check out that. Next Tuesday should be the eShow stream, and I'm looking forward to that because I am a big fan of the black decks in this game. So I think that's very good, and that's going to be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.